Harmonium! What is it? This thing I'm sure you probably have heard of and probably have thought it's from India. That's exactly what I thought, even until recently, until I started researching for this video. I always thought this was an Indian instrument, but it isn't. It actually has a much richer and bigger history than I could ever have imagined. But where does the harmonium come from? Let's find out. So where does it come from? Well, once again, it's China that wins. Although, with a caveat. There's an instrument from China from around 1100 years before Christ. So that's like 3,100 years ago, something like that. This instrument is called the Sheng. Here is a picture of that. And the technology of the Sheng is basically the precursor to the technology that the harmonium was built on. Now with the Sheng, that instrument is well known in China. In fact, here is a drawing of the Sheng from 3,000 years ago. And so you can clearly see that this is the same instrument. And also there is extraordinary archaeological evidence of the Sheng. The tomb of Marquis of Zheng, which dates back to 433 before Christ, was found with Sheng and other instruments absolutely brilliantly intact. It's one of the greatest archaeological finds ever when it comes to musical instruments. Incredibly well preserved Sheng. Just take a look at that. Now eventually the Sheng found its way to Europe. Some think a Jesuit priest, a missionary from China, brought it to Europe in the mid to late 1700s. Some think it came back with Marco Polo in the early 1300s after his travels to the east in China. But basically either way, it found its way to Europe and inspired a Danish inventor by the name of Christian Gottlieb Kratzenstein to make the first free reed in the appearance that we know today. And he did this in 1780, and from there on, all hell broke loose, because in the span of the next 50 years, a whole host of instruments were invented using that basic free reed technology. In 1810, Gabriel Joseph Crani invented an organ expressive, or expressive organ, as he called it, a basic free reed instrument. In 1821, the harmonica was invented in Germany, using the free reed. In 1829 in Vienna, an Armenian guy called Cyril Demian invented the accordion. It looked a bit different than it does today. Basically, these early accordions didn't have a keyboard yet, but that's where it started. And actually, it's believed that the accordion had actually been invented earlier in Russia. It's just that he got to the patent first. And then in 1840 in Paris, a chap by the name of Alexander de Bain patented the harmonium. What we know as the harmonium today didn't look like this. That was basically this, which is really a pump organ. It was called a pump organ because of the two pedals that your feet use to pump the air through the system. And I'll explain in a minute why this doesn't look like that. And then in 1853, a chap by the name of Victor Mustel basically made the Stradivarius of all pump organs or harmoniums. Made an amazing instrument with all sorts of bells and whistles that did all sorts of great stuff. And this instrument was basically courted by the likes of Elgar, Mahler, Liszt, Tchaikovsky. The list goes on. Excuse the pun. Now, why is this not looking like that? So here's what happened. The Brits went to India. They started trading in India and started messing around there in the 1600s already. But it was the mid-1700s where they really started colonizing and settling India. And with them, they brought their culture and their instruments, blah, blah, blah. One of them being the pump organ. Now, the pump organ, or harmonium, was a better deal than the piano, especially in a tropical country like India, because it would stay in tune better, it's more hardy, less finicky, cheaper. And so they imported a lot of pump organs into India. And as always with osmosis, someone in India saw this and thought, gee, that's nice, but I need to change it to make it work for me. And so that's exactly what happened. So in around the mid-1800s, a chap called Dwarkanath Ghosh found this instrument, or liked it, or played it, however it worked, and thought, I'm going to turn this into something that we can use in Indian music. And so they changed a few things. The first thing he changed was the size. Basically, if you've ever seen Indian musicians, classical Indian music, they all sit when they perform. So the first thing that had to go was the whole sitting there pedaling idea. That had to go out the window. So he made the instrument smaller, pumpable by one hand. And that also suited Indian music because unlike Western classical music where it's very harmonic based and you're playing chords, and so you need to be sitting and have both your hands, in Indian music it's melodic based and drone based. So you could easily incorporate this into Indian music only having one hand to play. And he also added some drone stops. There are also other bells and whistles, but basically he released his first instrument in 1875, and from there on this thing took over like wildfire in India. People went crazy for it, to the point where to this day most people, as I said in the beginning of the video, think of this as an Indian instrument, and the pump organ version of the harmonium doesn't exist anymore. No one makes that anymore. You'll only find that in museums. And the other important thing that he tried to change was he tried to adjust the tonality. Because in Europe, we've been working with the equal tempered system for centuries now. And that's not the case in Indian music. In fact, it's a bit of an ear-saw to Indian music. And so he adjusted the tuning of this thing. Indeed, trying to incorporate the Hindustani scale has 22 possible notes in it, where we have 12 in our equal tempered scale. And so he tried to incorporate that mostly unsuccessfully until a guy came along, actually quite recently, just a few decades ago, a guy by the name of Vidyadhar Oak, who has successfully now made a 22 note harmonium that is perfectly in tune with the natural harmonic system of the Hindustani scale. Here's a picture of that, and basically each note can have 3 different variations, and so you tune the thing to whatever raga you're playing or whatever you're doing. Okay, so this one is from Toronto. I got this from an Indian import store in Toronto, and they will special order them from India, and you can have them made in whatever configuration you like. I had this made with the lowest reed set possible, and so it has 3 different octaves of reed sets. Okay, so now in terms of the console, or where the knobs are, they do 2 different things. The first row, the top row here, controls the drones. So I have 5 different notes that are drones in here. And so these are notes that you can set up to drone away while you're playing to give you some accompaniment for yourself without needing something else. And then the bottom 4 notes are your stops. So let me show you. We'll start off with the stops. I've got a low, I've got 2 lows actually, and then a medium and a high. So let's just say this G, for example. If I pull the low out, you get that note. With a medium, you get this. And then with a high, you get this. Okay, now as for the drone pipes, they only work when the low is enabled. At least one of the lows have to be enabled. And as I said, we have 5 of them. So starting with F, then E flat, then D flat, then B flat, and then A flat. So you can build yourself up, any number of tonalities there. Oh, and there's one more knob that needs mentioning, and that's the octave button, which basically, let's go back to the G here. That's just a single note, but if I enable the octave button, I get the octave below it, in addition to the key I'm playing. I don't know if you can see very well here, but on this harmonium, it actually plays the key. Look at that. You can see it's actually playing the octave below key, no matter what I push. So that gives you a really thick sound, because not only are you getting whatever stops you've chosen here, but you're also getting an octave lower than the note you're actually playing. So if I open all the stops and have this button enabled, that's a very typical harmonium sound for example, Qawwali music. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and those guys, who are incredible players, of this instrument and others. But if you listen to how the harmonium sounds in that music, this is the sound they basically get. It's a very big sound, a very brash sound. It's very potent sound, and it's kind of like the rock guitar in Qawwali music. It's just a really loud, brash, crazy instrument, and I love it. It's awesome. If I open two of the drone pipes, let's say, for example, E flat and B flat. And I can easily change the tonality if I, let's say, choose an F and a D flat and maybe an A flat too. Or if I just open the D flat and the A flat, then I can play it in another kind of mode, minor or whatever you want. And I can deactivate the octave button there, and I can close all the drones and just have maybe two of the stops open, the low and the medium, and just play chords, and then I'll accompany myself on another instrument here. Now let's take a look at the magic of how this actually works. I'm going to open this up from the top and we're going to go and have a look. Okay, so now we're going to look inside. I've taken the little top off and you can see here, these are all the key mechanisms, and you can unhinge this thing with these levers and then open it right up, which is super cool. And we can take a look right in there. Now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different little chambers, and those chambers seal. They are sealable, and that is how you are able to create the air pressure from the bellow, which sucks air in right here and then blows it into these chambers. And depending on which chamber you activate, which you control with these buttons in front here, is what reeds are going to be activated. So if I take a look at this chamber here, this is our medium chamber, and that is this lever here. So when I pull that lever, it opens the hole that is underneath that plug. And all of a sudden now, air is let into this chamber, and this chamber is activating this set of reeds right here. As you can see, I don't know if you can see there, this set of reeds is now activated from this chamber. Likewise, this chamber here, which is this lever, as you can see, it's moving up and down, that will activate this chamber, which is this set of reeds here, and that is my high set of reeds. And likewise, this chamber here has two plugs. This is the low chamber, and that's activated by that one and this one, and that is activating this set of reeds right here, which are the low set of reeds, the lowest octave. And this chamber here, the reeds are actually bolted onto the chamber for the low, which is why you have to have the low enabled for the drones to work. So you can see here you've got 5 different drones. There are the reeds right there, and again these are activated by these levers here, and as you can see, that's working those and basically just opening up a hole here that then blows that reed. And as long as this chamber is active, you will hear that drone. I don't know, man, I think this is super cool. This is old technology, and to me it's still absolutely amazing that these things are still made today and we still use them. This instrument didn't come quietly to India. In fact, it became a street musician's delight, but the upper echelons, if you like, of the Indian classical community sort of frowned upon this instrument quite a bit for various reasons. One was the tuning, of course, and then the other was that, especially during the sort of independence movement that started late 1800s going into the 1900s, the harmonium was seen as the instrument of the occupier, the instrument of the British. And so it wasn't too popular, even going as far as certain radio stations banned the harmonium being played on the radio. This recently has sort of changed. It is now comfortably incorporated within Indian classical music, but I won't say wholeheartedly absorbed and accepted. Less a big part of Hindustani, North Indian classical music, and definitely not really a part of South Indian Carnatic music at all. Okay, so thank you for watching my episode on the harmonium. Now that you've seen this, and hopefully you've seen the Shruti Box episode, you will have a really good understanding of this technology, the free reed technology, and all the instruments that come out of that legacy. This is an instrument you will find in Indian import stores everywhere in India. It is pretty amazing, the history behind this instrument. But please hit that subscribe button and that bell button next to it, and don't ever stop learning, and I'll catch you on the next one. Well, thanks for watching my episode on the harmonium. There's an instrument from China, from around. There's an instrument, the tomb of Marquis Yi of Zheng, who was an extraordinary. Am I even rolling? Yeah. It comes out of this. Van gat kry. Let's try that again. Hello. And then it's very helpful. Hello. No, that's enough. Fuck it.